We have the leader of the tournament, R. Praggnanandhaa, taking fort against his good friend Leon Mendonca. Fourth round of the Tata Steel Masters 2025, and Pragg opens the game with 1e4. Pragg takes his time and Leon responds back with e5. It's different from what he played against Nodirbek. He played the French defense, and now Pragg brings his knight out to f3, knight c6. Today Leon is in a much more solid mood. Pragg thinks for a bit and plays the Ruy Lopez. Pragg is in the joint lead along with Nodirbek Abdusattorov at 2.5 out of 3, while Leon is on half a point out of 3. a6 played, questioning the bishop. Pragg moves his bishop back to a4, which is the setup that Leon will choose. He goes for the main line with knight f6, and now castling would be the main system here. But Pragg goes for d3, which is much more solid, and now the threat of course is to take the pawn on e5. Bishop c5 is one of the main moves here, but Leon first goes b5, attacking the bishop, and Pragg moves his bishop back to b3. It's on a very nice diagonal now. The move d3 is a slightly slow and positional way to play this position. Bishop now comes to c5. Very active. Now there are many ways in which white can play here. Pragg decides to go for the much lesser played move bishop g5, but very combative. Much more popular is castle, c3 and so on. h6, a question is asked immediately to the bishop. Where do you want to go? Do you want to get back to e3? Do you want to go back to h4? He goes to h4, maintaining the pin in the position. And Anish Giri comes in to look at the moves that have been played. d6 by Leon, and this is just opening up the other bishop, keeping the king still in the center, not castling too soon. c3 by Pragg, slowly and steadily improving the position, making a square for his bishop to come back. Later on can go d4. The bishop drops back to b6. And Pragg has played this position before against no less than Magnus Carlsen. a4 played, and this is already an interesting move where you are striking at these two pawns, and Leon very calmly plays rook b8, getting out of the attack of the rook on a1. Pragg takes, and Leon captures back on b5. And now Pragg plays his knight to a3. At this point it's important to play this a little bit more carefully. b4 is not the best move because it gives up the a4 and c4 squares. Interestingly, black can even castle here and give the pawn and play stuff like knight e7. And that's how this knight is not so well placed. But Leon goes b4, Pragg goes knight to c4, pawn takes pawn. And Pragg recaptures back with the pawn. The knight is looking at the bishop. Also bishop a4 to put pressure on the knight on c6. Finally Leon does castle it out here. And will Pragg castle here? You can see he's a little bit surprised with Leon's last decision. He also castles here. The main thing to note is that there is pressure down this file, and later white wants to go for the d4 break. He plays his king to h8. Slightly weird move here. But bishop a4, putting pressure on the knight on c6. Pragg is really good at such positions, these little moves that he makes. Bishop d7 played by Leon, defending the knight on c6. And Pragg now plays rook b1. His threat is to take to spoil the structure of black. But g5 played here by Leon. He's like, this bishop needs to move away. So comes back to g3. Now this bishop is a very double-edged bishop. It can become a bad piece because it's staring at the pawns. But if a successful d4 is played, it can be also a very good bishop. Bishop a7 played to trade the pair of rooks. And Pragg avoids it. He goes to a1. He wants to take on c6, take here and then chop off this bishop. So Leon comes back to b6. Will Pragg go back to b1? Perhaps not. The rook on a1 is well placed. He goes rook e1. This is a fantastic move. With this he defends the e4 pawn and prepares to play d4. Leon goes back knight to e7. He would love his knight to go to g6 and to f4 when his position would be well secured, but d4 in a timely way. Right into the center. First the bishops are traded. Bishop takes bishop. And Pragg comes back and chops off that bishop. Rook takes a4. Now you are unable to maintain this pawn on e5 because there is a lot of pressure here. So Leon decides to take on d4 and Pragg takes back. And now you can see this bishop scope has improved a bit. Knight goes to g6. And perhaps it's already time to strike in the center with e5. Fantastic move here. If you take, then already knight takes e5 with the bishop staring here would be very dangerous. So he goes knight h5. He could have played knight d5 and perhaps it was slightly better. But now pawn takes pawn. And taking back here would be a mistake because of bishop d6. So he takes first on g3 here, Leon, trying to get rid of that bishop. But Pragg is ready with his intermediate move, d takes c7, attacking the queen and the rook. So that has to be responded back to. Queen takes c7 played. And now Praggnanandhaa can recapture back the knight on g3 with his h-pawn. He takes it and now he's a pawn up. He has this very strong passer in the center, but also the king on h8 is very weak. Knight comes back to e3. Fantastic move. The knight is looking at the f5 square. He goes queen d7, keeping an eye on the rook on a4, also an eye on the pawn. And in comes queen a1. Defending here, also threatening the king on the long diagonal. He plays king to h7. How easy or difficult it is to convert this position remains to be seen. But Praggnanandhaa just has the most perfect mindset to convert these positions. He goes rook a6 first, slightly improving the position. The rook comes to b8. And now he plays his knight to c4 again. And Pragg is not averse to repeating moves often, like bringing his pieces back to the square from where they had moved. We've seen him doing that again and again. And now rook a7, pinning the bishop on c7. Leon plays the queen to c6. Here attacking the knight. And Pragg decides to play rook c1. Now a dangerous discovered attack is looming. Goes rook to a8. The point is, if you play knight e5, there is rook takes a7 attacking your queen. So not so simple. He plays d5. A great move, because if you take here, I can simply threaten to take here, but then the queen is hanging. So knight e3 and I'll take with this. So he goes rook takes a7, queen takes a7. And I believe Leon has this very nice move rook a8 in mind. Because if you take here, he wants to go rook a7 and say that the pawn on c6 is not such a big asset. But Pragg simply comes back to d4, center of the board. The queen is well placed here. He moves the queen back to d7. But it's also possible now to push the pawn even further. Yes, he pushes it forward. The bishop moves to d8, and we are reaching the end of the position here. As the knights are offered to trade, the queen is attacked here. So Leon plays queen to e6. He doesn't trade there. And now Pragg takes. And if you take with the queen, maybe there is knight e5 followed by checks coming in. So takes with the pawn, trying to be as secure as possible. But the main problem is the 7th rank is open. So the rook can enter from that side. First rook e1 played, attacking the queen. The queen goes to f7. And now Pragg plays queen to e4, attacking the rook on a8. We have surpassed the move 40 mark. So both players get an additional time of 50 minutes on the clock. And Pragg doing this in style. Step by step, he's moving ahead. Knight goes to e5. And now queen e6 played. And now knight jumps to c6, offering a trade of queens, also attacking the rook and the bishop. Leon takes the queen. Rook takes a4. And you just can't leave the bishop here because the pawn would simply queen. So he goes rook d7, but that move is just putting too much of pressure on this rook. And in order to stop this pawn, rook e6 played, defending the pawn, also creating some form of attack with knight e5. He pushes his pawn to h5, maybe trying to get some play with h4 flowing. Pragg comes back and he improves his position also with king h2, so that later on there are no checks. Now knight e5 and g6 is weak. And Leon pauses the clock. He resigns the game. And with this, Praggnanandhaa wins his 3rd game in this tournament out of 4 rounds. And he's now the sole leader of the tournament with 3.5 out of 4. What a beautiful positional crush this was.